Jan Sealover, A Sweet Affair. A Sweet Affair, Jan Sealover.
Have you ever in your entire life felt as if perhaps your relationship with sugary sweets had gotten just a little too close for comfort? I definitely did. Madam Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. This afternoon, I would like to share with you the story of how I got there and how sugar took on a life of its own for me in the form of an imaginary man I call Mr. Sugar Cravings. Did you ever have a romance that started out with you being just friends? Well, that was us. And like a good friend, Mr. Sugar Cravings would be there for me after a bad boyfriend breakup with a pint of Cherry Garcia and a box of Mega Stuff Oreos. It was only later, after I got riffed in a particularly stressful corporate downsizing, that I began to realize just how attractive Mr. Sugar Cravings really was. I started thinking of him less as a foodie friend and more as a frosting fantasy. Before things went too far, though, I had a dream. Sharon Osbourne was in my dream. She looked at me and she said, "You know, John, it wasn't just your job that needed downsizing. You need to get on the Atkins plan." She was right, and so I did. But then, Mr. Sugar Cravings, he dumped me. I thought he was gone for good. Until one night, I found myself sitting in front of the television watching Cake Boss with a supersized classic Coke in one hand and a bowl of M&Ms the size of a basketball in my lap. He had gotten me to do things I knew I shouldn't, without me even realizing it. I could feel his warm breath on the back of my neck as he whispered in my ear, "Hey baby, I'm back. Did you miss me?" Suddenly I realized I had fallen completely under his spell. He was all I thought about. He had turned my world so upside down that dessert had become the foundation of my food pyramid. And when our table topics master asked me, "Where in the world would you most like to live?" all I could think of was, next to the Krispy Kreme shop, of course. After a nice dinner out at a restaurant, I would get all hot, sweaty, just looking at the dessert menu. I was helpless. I was hopeless. I was a hot fudge mess. On a late night run to CVS with milk and toilet paper in my arms, I passed the candy display on the way out. My mind immediately started dreaming of what it would be like to be ravished by Mr. Sugar Cravings as he fondled me into a food coma. If only I would mindlessly polish off a bag or two of that candy. I felt like I was in a trance as I watched an avalanche of Twizzlers, peanut butter cups, and Werther's caramels tumble into my bag at the checkout. It took both hands to carry all those essentials out to my car that night. And I still don't know where in the store I left the milk in the toilet. By fall, I began to notice that my personality had changed. Since my affair with Mr. Sugar Cravings, I I just wasn't myself. I came back from a romantic getaway weekend at the Hershey's Chocolate Festival feeling bewitched. But the spell soon vaporized. And before I knew it, I was feeling cranky and irritable and, well, deserted. The startling wake-up call came, though, in yoga class. There I was, trying to hold my pose, when suddenly I collapsed. I crashed to the floor, and I began to cry. The yoga instructor came running over to me, and she yelled, "Sealover, the pose we are doing is downward-facing dog, not upward-facing log." There it was, staring me right in the waist. My six-pack had become unpacked. I had to find a way to end this unhealthy relationship and get Mr. Sugar Cravings out of my life. I decided to break it off face to face. Sugar, we're going to have to just not see each other anymore. Our relationship was just never meant to be. You're probably going to start seeing stevia now, aren't you? Sugar, you know I could never do that. He's still bitter after his last breakup. What about agave? I've seen you eyeing him. Well, Sugar, I have to admit, I do find his low glycemic index rather sexy. Glad that's over with. Even after my breakup with Mr. Sugar Cravings, I know I will still have to keep seeing him. He's pretty much everywhere these days. But in my heart, I know it's over. Almost. Certainly, totally over. And this time, after my breakup with Mr. Sugar Cravings, I think I'll look to friends to be there for me who are less like Ben and Jerry and more like my fellow Toastmasters.